Civil rights means you have to have like equal rights between colored people and white people. African Americans and white people need to have equal rights.
So the segregation is about when the blacks and white was treated differently, and the whites were treated like they were like kings and queens. The blacks were treated like they were like animals, and they had separated schools, and they made the whites like get like wealthy stuff, and like they had new stuff, and they gave like the black school like hand-me-down books.
The Richwood Community Development Agency, or RCDA, has provided a variety of community services for the past 20 years. Despite meager resources derived primarily from charitable gaming and giving, despite space limitations within our building, we desire to teach any child who chooses to participate in the summer program. RCDA is based in the town of Richwood, which is adjacent to the city of Monroe, both in northeast Louisiana. Both communities have predominantly African American and other minority populations. Our annual community outreach includes purchasing and distributing at least 48 bicycles and 150 books to school children each Christmas, as well as school supplies to teachers and students. We also organize an annual community service banquet where we partner with other small nonprofits for a local fundraising event. And we sponsor the local Juneteenth festival. Using high school students as our primary instructors under the supervision of volunteer teachers, our kids explore a variety of topics. A token economy is used which rewards students for appropriate behavior and active participation with dollars that can be used to purchase prizes daily. We have many of the students involved in an actual saving incentive program that is designed to foster their future self-sufficiency. Initial funds to open their accounts are earned during summer program participation, and additional funds are added to their accounts at 6-month intervals if the students have added at least $1 to their own accounts during that interval. Some of our most active children have ended up with a nice starter sum in their first bank account, money that they've worked for and saved themselves. In previous years, lessons for the students have focused on gardening, engineering and circuitry, music, crafts, sewing, astronomy, and cooking. In 2012, the students traveled the world using pretend passports to gain entry into our representations of various countries where they learned facts and sampled the local cuisine. The 2013 program was designed to learn about the United States, explore civil rights history, and experience actual travel to 3 states adjacent to Louisiana while visiting sites that are significant in civil rights history. Because of the participants' ages, discussion of civil rights events and issues were integrated with other enrichment activities in order to maintain student interest and keep a generally upbeat class tone. Some of the general class activities in which students engaged during the 2013 summer program include the following. Students read and discussed 4 books, 1 per week, on topics from computers to family to professional aspiration. Each student present during the reading activity was given a personal copy of the book that was read and discussed that day to take home. While reading a book on bullying, kids gave personal examples of their own experiences and discussed what should be done in these situations.
When I was in 8th grade at Richwood Junior High, these kids, they kept on messing with me, trying to make me fight. I wanted to fight, but I didn't.
Very good. Because just because somebody else is a bully doesn't mean that you have to respond to them.
Students engaged in science activities where they combined mixtures to simulate lava lamps in plastic cups, to create colored slime, and to cause foam to overflow from plastic bottles when 4 normally benign ingredients were combined. Of course, safety was always a concern when potentially harmful substances were being handled. Students learned foreign and sign languages. Although Latin and French were taught in previous years, this year's foreign language lessons focused on Spanish.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
So what's 14?
15. 17.
Good night.
Buenas noches.
Buenas. Okay, say it with me. Buenas. Noches. Alright. What is your name? Alright, say it with me. Como. Se llama. The two L's together on Yama's name. If there are 2 L's, then it makes a Y sound. So Yama. Right. How are you? Alright, say it with me. Como. Stop. Do you speak English? In Spanish, if you're going to ask someone you, and you're referring to another person in second person, then it'd be an AS ending instead of an O. Like O. You're saying hablo, or you're saying I. Okay. Excuse me?
Are you all ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. A, B,
C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
All right, Gwen. Okay. All right. Mackenzie, let me see you. E. All right, good. All right, we're gonna move over to Calvin.
CALDRIN.
Okay.
Students learn general manners, table place settings, and dining etiquette, which included napkin placement, utensil use, and appropriate table conversation.
Now we want you to set your placement. So what side does your fork go on?
This side.
Left. Place your fork. Place your fork on your left. What about your knife and spoon? What side does it go on? Right. The fork goes on your left. The knife, which way should your blade be turned on your knife? Right there. No. Turn your knife to your blade to your plate. Right here. Touch the meat small enough to be able to eat it. Don't take it back to the piece.
I cut my own.
Good, very good. Okay. Just practice. You just have to practice. Yes.
During their exploration of the United States and civil rights, the participants engaged in integrated lessons where they studied facts, landmarks, universities, and important civil rights events in each state within the specific regions of the U.S. Students were provided a resource handbook that contained, among other things, a list of significant civil rights events dating back to the 1600s. After discussion of each state or geographic region, students scoured this list in an effort to locate events that occurred in the state or region and read the information to classmates.
It happened more up north, but in particular in Tallahassee, the capital, there were bus boycotts because they wouldn't let African Americans ride the buses, or they'd make them sing the back of the buses.
After a massive protest rally and NAACP boycott, the governor of South Carolina has a Confederate flag on top of the state house. Don't move to a less auspicious place. One of the earliest slave revolts to take place in Stony, South Carolina, as 4 whites and more than twice as many black slaves were killed as the armed slaves tried to flee to Florida.
They forced him along. They didn't provide bus rides or wagon rides. They forced him to migrate on their own.
What is it? What was it?
Trail of Tears.
I've heard of that trail in school.
Right.
Why did they call it the Trail of Tears?
Because people died and they couldn't stop for funerals. They just have to keep going.
Choctaws. The Choctaws left the state. All Choctaw territory north seceded to the U.S. The Choctaws moved to Oklahoma.
Use them again.
And now all Native American groups. Okay. During when Americans taking over Native American territories, what they will often do.
can't she vote now, but she was able to vote before?
Because they just passed the law that you have to have, that you have to have a birth certificate to get an ID.
All right, you have to have a state-issued ID, and you need a birth certificate in order to get that.
It's a non-violent protest. Like, it's for people that really don't want to harm nobody, do no violence, and keep peace, and try to put things in.
All right, where is their sit-in ongoing right now?
Florida.
With regard to what? Okay. Gwendolyn. What? All right, sometimes they did turn into riots. Keyshawn. Sit-ins or what? Okay, very good.
They stay there until something happens from the protest.
Okay. And what did we say was happening right now that has resulted in a lot of protests all across the country?
So people from about the Zimmerman trial to be calm.
Okay, told them to be calm. Were all the protests that are going on now calm?
No. In New York.
In some places, in Los Angeles, they were not having calm protests. But in some places they were.
They also sampled foods commonly eaten in each state or region, such as Maine, lobster, Boston, cream pie, and Louisiana gumbo and beignets. Puzzle wars were particularly favored by the students. During this activity, pairs of participants would compete to determine which pairing could correctly assemble the United States map within the shortest amount of time. Rewards went to winners. Although this competition was fun for participants, it also served to fortify their geographic knowledge. Because we often paired a younger student with an older student, an element of teaching also was included in this activity.
Sit down. Sit down.
I've never eaten anybody come out their mouth, and I never will.
Toward the end of the program, students examined an Underground Railroad quilt that depicted the symbols used by slaves to guide them on their journey north. Although this activity encouraged discussion of the hardships that slaves endured before and during their journeys, it also depicted the ingenious ways that slaves, abolitionists, and former slaves who helped plan and implement escape conveyed information openly via codes, songs, and quilt patterns.
All right, and so on the Underground Railroad quilt are the symbols. Lay it down on the table. You don't have to hold it up in the air. All right, are the symbols that would show slaves how they should escape. It would start with the monkey wrench, which again was the signal that they needed to start gathering their tools in order to travel. It turned towards a wagon wheel, which was the symbol that a lot of the slaves will carry in false bottoms of wagons, to the bear claw, The bear claw was a symbol that they needed to follow the path of animals because through the Appalachian Mountains, because the animals knew the quickest and the easiest routes. Once they got to the crossroads, they would go to a log cabin, either in the ground or a cave or something. That was a place where they would find refuge. The shoe fly, which was a person who would provide them with assistance, would dress them up in cotton clothing and bow ties because they did not want to be conspicuous in the city, so they would change into clothing that would be appropriate for wearing in the cities. They would then follow the flight of geese in the spring, which was who were heading north for the spring, and follow the North Star. All right, now there are some other panels on here that we didn't discuss in this last little presentation, but I want you to understand that all of these symbols were part of the language that was used in the Underground Railroad in order to help slaves get to freedom. Underground Railroad, what was the purpose of the flying geese? Green?
What's up? Spring?
Okay. All right. This is getting interference. Okay. On the Underground Railroad, what's the significance of the North Star? Red?
So you will know, so you can tell the direction of what north is. So you can tell what north is.
Okay. On the Underground Railroad, what was the significance of
The wagon wheel.
green?
36 students and 10 chaperones departed Monroe at 5:30 a.m. for a one-day excursion to 3 sites that are significant components of civil rights history. The trip from Monroe to Little Rock, Arkansas, took about 3.5 hours. On arrival to Daisy L. Gaston Bates Drive, students toured Central High School with the assistance of a guide and learned details about Miss Bates and other members of the Little Rock Nine who were involved in the integration of that school. This event was significant in the history of civil rights because Governor Faubus defied federal law and forbade the integration of Arkansas schools. In fact, he used the state's National Guard to initially prevent admittance of the Little Rock Nine into Central High School. Only after President Dwight Eisenhower ordered the National Guard and the Screaming Eagles of the 101st Airborne to escort these 9 youth were they provided entry into the school. Thus began the integration of all Arkansas schools. Pictures that students took during that portion of the visit focus on the school itself, artifacts, and stories associated with the 9 students, and illustrations of their current impact and notoriety.
I like Mary Jean the best out of the 9 because she was confident in herself and she was proud.
There was only 3 people that graduated, and there were only 9 people that were in the school.
Okay. How many students were admitted to, African American students were admitted to Central High School? I think Caleb had his hand up first.
How many
Caleb?
were admitted?
How many originally signed up?
200.
Over 200, between 200 and 300. How many were intended to go, Caleb?
Anybody remember what year the school was built in Little Rock?
Right here. 1927.
1927. So it was built in 1927. Okay? And can anybody tell me what year, or tell me the name of the case that started the Segregation Act?
What case started the Segregation Act?
Jensen? Huh?
That was it.
Something versus something.
You was close.
Black woman from Keisha.
Who?
Black woman from Keisha.
You was close.
Amber.
You got the wrong color.
I can't hear you. Speak up.
Yeah.
Listen.
Blessing versus.
I know you said blessing versus Ferguson. She said it was what? Integrate. What was the time frame they gave you? She called it what?
Come on. It's on your tip of your tongue.
What was it?
Say that again.
All deliberate speed.
Right. And does anybody know what all deliberate speed means? That was just left up in the air, right? That was just anything. That wouldn't even make sense.
On arrival at the Civil Rights Museum, which includes the Lorraine Motel, the location where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, students initially were brought to an instructional area where they watched a videotape on civil rights which highlighted the roles of females in the civil rights struggle. They later were taken to exploration areas where they sat in a bus much like the one on which Rosa Parks had ridden, viewed many of the displays, and engaged in a variety of interactive instructional activities. Students particularly were privileged to tour the balcony on which Dr. King was assassinated outside of his motel room. In one instance, several of the young men attempted to recreate the infamous scene where civil rights leaders pointed to the location from which the deadly shots had rang out. Photos taken by the students showed their particular interest in Dr. King's actual room. A depiction of the room that was occupied by his assassin, Dr. King's vehicle, and clothing. The arrival to the former home of Medgar Evers was late, and darkness had set in. After a discussion of his significant efforts toward integrating universities and enhancing African American voter registration in Mississippi, students were allowed to take pictures on the site where he was assassinated for engaging in those very activities. Only after a 30-year battle was his assassin brought to justice. We arrived back in Monroe at about 10 p.m. We held a post-trip dinner 2 days later at a restaurant in Monroe. There, students socialized before departing back to their different schools and reflected on their summer experiences. When asked what they had learned about civil rights during their summer experiences, students provided the following insights.
On the trip, I learned that Martin Luther King was a guest in the Lorraine Hotel, and he got shot in the back. And for civil rights, Rosa Parks, she got on the bus, and this man told her she needed he needed that seat, but she didn't get up. And she said, I'm going to call the police. And she said, you may do that. And then she went to jail.
Learned about segregation.
In Memphis, Tennessee, it was Martin Luther King was a person who tried to get people equal rights so we could both have the same amount.
I learned about Martin Luther King situation, how he was really an important person, and many were hurt when he died.
Xavier, can you tell me what you learned in the program about the issues of civil rights?
I learned that people work hard to get these laws to make it right for white and black people to go to school, and we need to work hard to keep the laws right.
What impacted you most about what you saw on the trip?
How really bad they got beat up and stuff. I didn't know they were getting treated that bad. And I didn't know, like, white kids, they were their friends. I thought all of them just went against all the black people.
Okay.
Some people are still
Okay.
Martin Luther King got shot by a dude. I don't know his name, but he went to jail. He went to jail and died. And we saw his car at the hotel where he got shot from. The Native Americans, I learned more about my heritage because I'm not really a Native Americans, but I learned that the whites told them to come to school so they can forget about their tribe and how their languages and stuff. And that's mostly what I learned on the trip and in the
There were meetings and people integrating the schools and stuff. And now today, the trip from Martin trial.
We hope that the experiences gained by this summer's program and trip created in these students the desire to actively pursue historical data and to apply that information to the choices they make in their everyday lives. We wanted to provide them with the tools necessary to make just and reasonable decisions that take fairness and the rights of others into account. A few of our students provide the best expressions of our initial efforts towards success.
I learned that freedom isn't free, and what I liked about the trip is that I got to see Martin Luther King on his hotel and everything. That was like a great experience for me.
Okay. Do you know of any current day civil rights issues?
Prejudice is still going on.
Okay.
And I think that should be changed.
Okay. What else?
The Freedom Sisters, they were very important. They did lots of stuff to change the stuff between the whites and blacks, and one of them tried to run for president of the United States.
I learned that black people need to do a lot for us to have more than we have now. I learned that a lot of people were killed just so we could have our rights, and they wouldn't stop fighting until we got them.
People, they fought for our rights, and that we should always stand for our rights, because if we were taken away, it's like, because it was taken away from them, and we're taking advantage of it instead of keeping it and fighting for it like they did. But we didn't fight for it, we just were born the rights.
Sit down. Sit down.
I've never eaten anybody come out their mouth, and I never will.
To learn more about the Richwood Community Development Agency, visit our website at